And welcome back here to the Channel 9 live stage at Microsoft Ignite. My name is Rick Claus, and I'm joined by Tom Hauberger.
How's it going, Rick?
Hauberger.
Hauberger, that's right.
Got it. Thank you very much for joining us online, Tom. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
This session was playfully called the Linux Beard of Knowledge.
Linux Beard of Knowledge, yeah, that's right.
So we'll get to why that is in just a minute. But I do have a question about a particular tweet that I saw just recently that kind of introduced you. You and I had met before.
Yep.
But you have it up on the screen right there.
Yes, I do.
I don't know if they can cut over to the demo there, but it says, on my Mac, wearing a GitHub shirt, working on my Docker PowerPoint for Microsoft Ignite. It's a new Microsoft.
Yep.
It's like, seriously?
Yeah, this was a couple of hours ago. I was finishing up my talk for Ignite, and it's, the GitHub shirt I'm wearing right now. This is my Microsoft issued MacBook Pro, and just working with a ton of open source stuff. It's really cool to see.
That's awesome, man. We're going to be having an interactive session. We've got about 30 minutes or so of time here in the live stream. We're in between the hot room sessions that are going on. If you wanted to ask any questions, as I'm sure you will coming up in the not too distant future, you can either tweet them out to us at hashtag MSIgniteCH9, or you can go ahead and you can use the form if you're watching us at channel9.msdn.com. Down below there you can put in your question, and my fantastic administrative assistant, Seth, will be able to go in and authorize those questions so we can go off and see them when they come up. Now, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your background, because when we chatted before, you're saying that you've actually worked at Microsoft 3 times.
3 times. This is my third time.
So talk to me about the history. How'd you get started? What did you do? And then you left, and then came back, and then left, and then now you're back again.
That's right. So 2010, I'm graduating from college, so just a couple of years ago. Took my nice job out of school at Microsoft. Was really excited to get started in the Windows team. I had started a company in college with a guy that was a year behind me in school, and so I got about 9 months into my job at Microsoft, and we had the opportunity to be part of Y Combinator down in the Valley, and so that was something we decided we couldn't pass up, and I decided I'd stop making some money and go down there and do the startup thing for a little while. Worked on that for another year and a half, 2 years, hit a vesting point with the company, came back up to Microsoft, got married to my wife who's been in Xbox for a long time, been at Microsoft for a long time, and slipped kind of back into a role with Microsoft and Windows. Didn't love the role, honestly, but I was kind of burnt out from the startup scene, and so it was nice to kind of just settle down. And then we ended up selling the company in 2013, and I took a little time off and started playing with more and more open source stuff, a lot more Linux stuff on my own projects. And I met Corey Sanders, who you guys had on here earlier this week.
Yep.
Kind of through a mutual friend, and he invited me in for coffee, and I was working for him 2 days later. So nice. That's kind of how I ended up back in Azure, and specifically I'm working for the Linux compute team now.
Okay.
So our whole job is to try to make the Linux story really cool on Azure, and we're doing that in large part by bringing on a lot of the really popular open source technologies and making sure those work really well for developers.
So the Linux team on Azure,
yep,
being able to go off and do
a weird thing to say. Yeah, weird thing to hear.
It's not that weird. I mean, we've been talking about the stat for a while now about having about just under or just around 20% of the virtual machine instances that are up on Azure.
I think we just creeped over to 21% actually.
Update the stat.
21%
of the machines running on Azure and virtual machine instances are actually some form of Linux operating system.
That's right.
Very, very cool, man. And I mentioned you had an encounter with Corey Sanders as the last impetus to be able to come back to work on his team.
Yep.
Now, he told me this story about how when you were interviewing and hired, you had this great beard, and that he was jokingly saying that he wanted to bring the Linux Beard of Knowledge into his particular team.
That's right.
But then when you started, you arrived and you were clean shaven.
Yeah.
And you had to grow back again.
Yeah, so I met Corey, and I came in my full open source Linux, flannel, big beard apparel, and they're like, "Wow, we got some Linux credibility on the team. Let's sign this guy up." And I went home for the holidays, and over the holidays, I decided to embark on a year So a 1-year beard growth experiment. I'm technically raising some money for charity through Charity Water on that. But I was just curious to see kind of what it would look like. But in order to really start the year fully, I had to go all the way down to 0. And so came out of the bathroom on January 4th, and my wife was frightened that there was some child in her house, and
It's a man-child running around.
yeah, it's been growing ever since. So it just turned 4 months old. We had a little celebration earlier in the week.
Oh, nice.
And I think Corey's on the verge of thinking we have too much Linux on my face at this moment. Yeah.
Well, I'll look forward to the invitation to the half anniversary party.
Yes. Yeah.
When it comes up in a couple of months.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Don't forget, we've got the ability to go ahead and ask some questions. I know some questions are going to start coming in pretty soon here at the channel9.msdn.com website with the form. It's there. I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're working on. I mean,
Sure.
You've been down at Build last week.
I was at Build last week.
That week, and there's a number of partner announcements, a number of things that went on. Why don't you take a little bit of time just to recap what they were, because I'm not familiar with them. I was getting ready for this conference. I would attend Build themselves. What's exciting and happening as part of those announcements in the Linux space?
So we had 2 really big announcements in my opinion. On the open source and sort of startup engagement side of the world. One was with a little company called GitHub that is arguably the biggest open source brand in the world right now. What's up, Mahesh? We've got a fan crowd over here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Teammates photobombing us.
Yeah. So so GitHub, obviously people are familiar with GitHub.com, number 1 source code repository in the world.
Very popular in the open source community.
Yeah, huge driver of really the large open source movement we've seen over the last couple of years. So GitHub has a really cool enterprise product, which is basically github.com that you can throw behind the firewall. So they have companies like Etsy and Vimeo that are on their own servers hosting their own internal version of GitHub. And as of last week, GitHub Enterprise is now available on Azure. So you can go check that out. You can spin up the GitHub Enterprise appliance on Azure, set up your own thing. There's I think it's a 45-day free trial to just kick the tires and see what it's like. So that was really cool. I got to visit the GitHub offices. Actually, when you walk into the GitHub office, the welcome waiting room is like a stage quality replica of the Oval Office at the White House.
Oh, wow.
But they have a presidential portrait of like Octocat and everything, their mascot. So it's pretty cool. So that was the first big announcement. The other big announcement we did was it's a startup in the Valley called Mesosphere, and they are very much in sort of the orchestration. We kind of got involved with them from a Docker and orchestration perspective, but their product is called the Data Center Operating System, and basically what that gives you is if I have 1,000 compute nodes running on Azure, I can kind of just treat those as one big black box, and I can hand these like really cool open source workloads directly to DCOS, and it just goes out and figures how to install everything and put them on the right boxes and things like that. It's super cool for, if I've heard of HDFS or I've heard of Cassandra or, I've heard of Docker and I just want to deploy a workload without doing all the underlying setup. You just give it to them and rock and roll. It's super fast. I think it really encourages a lot of experimentation with new technologies.
Now, from both of those perspectives, I'm curious. Now, we had Mark Russinovich on earlier. We also had Corey Sanders on earlier talking about the different technologies that are there. Both of them are very excited about the new capabilities that are possible with the Azure Resource Manager. And then the templates that you can now go that are declarative files. Do these different implementations rely on having those declarative files and having the template language in place to be able to use, and that's why they're coming out now?
Yeah, so I actually, so I only joined the team back at, I guess, the end of November, early December, and then with the holidays and everything. So basically this year, right? And when we've gone out and talked with a lot of different partners, the discussion just out of the gate has been like, if you're going to build something new on Azure, we're going to do it on the new stack. And so when we started, really engaging GitHub, the discussion the whole time was, how do we get this working on the new stack? So actually, a really easy way of deploying GitHub Enterprise right now is to go to the quick start templates that I'm sure Corey and Mark had shared. There's one for GitHub Enterprise, so it's a one-click deploy experience. Mesosphere, we're working on the same exact thing. So their whole product and implementation on Azure is going to be backed by the new compute stack and the new Azure Resource Manager templates. So super cool.
Very neat stuff, man. You have a Mac on stage.
I do.
It's definitely a new Microsoft.
I do.
I'm seeing more and more of them around the offices. I'm
That's
seeing
right.
more and more of them on keynote stages and keynote demos.
Yep.
But that's actually your daily driver.
Yeah. Well, I think the big reason our team opted to go with these is they hold open source stickers really well. So
Oh.
we have a little shot right here.
Oh, there we go.
So I've got several different Octocats. Actually, if we can zoom in really quickly, so this is a
See how good our
special
camera
edition.
guy is to be able to do it.
This is a special edition Octocat. It's called the Scott Guthrie Octocat. So if
Scott.
you look really closely,
Okay.
he's wearing his famous red polo and jeans.
Are you serious?
There he is, right here. Yeah. And we have kind of the Obama cat right here as well.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, the Macs are great for that. So before we even start talking about work, the stickers on the front are really cool.
Yeah.
Macs are fantastic, particularly as we are really trying to light up the Linux story. I can, if I can't run something natively on OS 10, I can spin up a virtual machine right here that works really seamlessly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great, boot to Docker option when I want to play around with Docker environments. I can get everything I need from a development perspective on here. And then with, sort of the rise of Office 365 and Skype for Business, I'm able to, use this as my day-to-day machine. So we've actually been toying around with the idea on part of Corey's team, the Linux team specifically, of moving all of the program managers' day-to-day machine over to Ubuntu workstations.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like super radical for Microsoft. And the biggest blocker up until now has been like, oh, I can't get Link to work on. And you know how we live on Link internally.
If it's not Link or email.
Yeah. And
it's a drive-by, walk in and say hello, and that's about all you
Yeah,
have.
no. And I think the first time I tried to use Link on Ubuntu, actually, I had to use the web plugin, and I believe I could only listen to the call. Like I couldn't even, speak back into it or something. Never mind screen sharing. So we are able to use and leverage Skype's web plugin now.
Okay.
And so I think that blocker's gone. And so when we get back from these conferences, we'll start that revolt again, I think, and see if we can get everybody on Ubuntu for day-to-day stuff.
Very, very good. That's actually awesome, man.
Yeah.
Again, if you're interested, you're welcome to go ahead and ask some questions at channel9.msdn.com. There's a forum down below. You can also tweet us with the hashtag MSIgnitesCH9. Now, I do have to ask, just because we got a little bit of an interlude here before I get a couple of questions. I got some more lined up, but I want to find out about, because I don't have facial hair.
Okay.
And so a buddy of mine challenged me. His name is Matt McSpirit. He's the System Center Operations Manager type guy, equivalent to what I do, to actually ask you about beard products.
Beard products.
And beard hygiene. And
stuff. Rick, it's funny you ask that because I have a little travel toolkit that I brought with me to Chicago here.
That's so awesome. So
I've tried a bunch of these things actually, but so the key is really it's a two-pronged approach in my opinion.
Okay.
I have a class of product called a beard oil, and there's also a class of product called a beard balm. And so the oil does a really great job when you kind of do it as a first layer, and it gets all the way down to the skin.
Yeah.
Keeps everything healthy in there. And then the balm is really, particularly in a windy city like this, is really helping you kind of to seal things in and protect it against the elements. So actually, Beard brand is my preferred brand on the beard oil.
I was going to say, that one there actually says about Tree.
Yeah, this is Tree Ranger oil.
Tree Ranger.
Yeah.
Comes with like a lumberjack axe.
Yeah, it's like the lumberjack Power Ranger basically.
Nice.
And then this is by the Brighton Beard Company right here, and I think these are great.
Nice.
But I've probably tried a half dozen different products now. A few of which I was allergic to and learned the hard way. But this has turned out to be a pretty good combination. And
they're travel size.
Yeah, they're travel size, TSA approved, everything.
Nice.
So
I think secretly it's because Matt's an Englishman that is unable to grow any facial hair.
Yeah,
He continuously looks like he's just turned 18.
That's right.
Even despite his well-groomed top hair. There he is over there. So he's
that is very well groomed.
He is. He's going to end up having to come back and do that. 2 years to get what he has right now on his face.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've only got, I was saying it just turned 4 months, so I've only got the back 8 to go. and hasn't quite slowed down yet. So I think my wife Mackenzie may be getting a little nervous at this point.
Nice.
I'm certainly getting a little nervous.
Nice. You mentioned that when you were down in Build, you also went off and visited the GitHub offices and other offices
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Have you been visiting any customers or any partners that you're allowed to talk about? You don't have to mention their names, but like scenarios. And if you were visiting them, what kind of things were you talking with them about, and what kind of preconceived notions did they have?
I think so yes, we've been doing a ton of time face to face with both customers and partners.
Hmm.
GitHub and Mesosphere are great examples. I would say leading up to Build, we were trying to get a version of Mesosphere ready in a really cool demo. Actually, Mark Rusinovich showed Mesosphere off at his keynote at Build.
Hmm.
We were trying to get that ready, and we actually had 4 or 5 full-time Microsoft engineers on a Slack channel. Are you guys familiar with Slack?
Yep.
Yeah. So Mesosphere has a Slack channel. They created a Microsoft collaboration channel for us,
Hmm.
and we had 4 or 5 full-time engineers on Slack almost 24/7 leading up to Build, kind of going through the issues.
Wow.
And so it's been really cool when you work with startups. The nice thing is that if I give them a workaround, or I give them a suggestion, or I give them something new to try,
Hmm.
they just go out and do it. Right? They'll turn it around in 2 hours
It's
and start giving me feedback.
it's it,
And
it's the mentality of go ahead and get it done. Fail
exactly,
fast.
exactly,
Right?
yeah.
The idea is that you learn from the
Yep.
mistakes and you just implement the changes after.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really cool about that, when we're introducing a new compute stack and a new platform, there is, if you have these really capable, hungry startups, and they're willing to give you really quality feedback on that turnaround time cycle, it's so valuable for us. Those type of interactions really helped us clean up the quality of the stuff before the public release. It's just fantastic. But one of the things that I like to think we're doing a good job of differentiating ourselves with customers is just going the extra mile to spend the face-to-face time with them, right?
Mhm.
It obviously doesn't scale infinitely. I can't go to every single
Right.
customer and partner and
Right.
say, I'm gonna, come down and fly down to your office. But for the partners that we can do that with, and who are willing to go really bang on the new technology,
Mhm.
it's super valuable. And I think it sort of just like, we're showing off these new Linux technologies, we're showing off these new APIs, a new way of thinking. We're showing that we're willing to go work with the startups instead of
Mhm.
reinventing a version of their product and things like that. And I think it just goes a long way to sort of dispel some of the traditional Microsoft identity. They're like, wow, these guys are wanting to work with us, help us get our product better,
Right.
and are willing to kind of to spend the human power on face-to-face time.
Mhm. We have a question that came in there. Actually, this one is from, you might not know the answer to this one here, but I think I might. From Menno Stevens, Linux as a guest OS on generation 2 VMs on Hyper-V. Again, you're on the cloud side, the Azure side.
That's right.
What is happening there? And I remember that I actually did an interview on Channel 9 a little while ago with members of the Linux Integration Services team, the
Hmm.
LIST team. And they were talking about how just even with the latest editions that are now available for download, I want to say 4.5 or 4.8, Linux Integration Services, you are able actually to start up a Linux VM from scratch
Yep.
with UEFI boot up
Yep.
and everything along those lines on the Hyper-V side of things.
Yep.
So I don't know if Menno, if that is going to answer the question that is there.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't do generation 2 VMs on Azure.
Yep.
We do generation 1 VMs, and I know the Azure Site Recovery does a translation if you're doing a protection of Gen 2 up to a Gen 1. But at this point in time, we're just doing Gen 1s on
Yeah.
Azure side of the world, and that's what we have to say.
Yeah, I will. I think the other thing to call out on a related note there is, we talked a lot at Ignite this week about Azure Stack, for instance.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And the really the big core promise there is anything I can go do in the public Azure cloud,
Mhm.
I can take back and go do on-prem, right? And so, if you're running the Hyper-V stuff on-prem, you should be able, anything you deploy into the cloud, our goal is to get to that complete one-to-one parity,
Mhm.
and let you write that collateral and that deployment once and be able to go to either cloud there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, this one here may be forward-thinking, forward-looking.
Okay.
So you know the training and how this works.
Sure,
This
sure.
is public and live. Everyone's looking at this right now, so
Public.
don't say anything that you want to have appear on Mary Jo's blog. But what do you think is going to be very cool stuff that you'd like to see happen on Azure in the Linux world?
I think the thing that I'm most personally interested in at work is watching the really rapid evolution of the container space.
Yeah,
It's so exciting right now.
that's big all over right now.
Yeah, and I think the big thing though is when we go in and talk to a lot of customers, we almost never have like a new customer or partner come in and leave without mentioning Docker or leave
Okay.
without mentioning containers or the new Windows Server containers, right?
Yep.
Um, the thing is, people get that concept and they get the benefits of containerization and sort of the benefits of going towards like a microservice architecture really quickly. The big gap for them is like, hey, I get this benefit. It sounds really great. I want to do it. How do I get past like the hello world level of application and put something in production? And I think where I'm really excited to see our support come in is what our story ends up being for how we support containers as really like a really key important element of the ecosystem. So Amazon has a managed container service. Google has a managed container service built on Kubernetes. We haven't done that yet, but we've taken a really cool tactic, in my opinion, which is go work with the startups who are invested in solving this problem 24/7, 365, and make sure those guys run really, really well on Azure. And if they can do that, we can kind of monitor what's picking up, what seems like the right model, and then use that as inputs going forward.
So your session today, this morning,
Yep.
you said you're working on it with that particular tweet that you have. Tell me a little bit about it. What kind of demos did you show, and how were they received by the crowd?
I think it went really well. I'm a little biased, but I thought it went really well. I made a couple of jokes about Chicago deep dish style pizza,
Right.
which I actually found one of the drawbacks of the facial hair.
Drawbacks, facial hair, is leftovers.
So leftovers. Yeah. So New York at this point, New York style pizza is still absolutely 100% okay. Chicago deep dish style pizza, however, when you start getting into multiple inches of pizza, is rough on the beard. But the demo itself actually went really well. We actually stood up in about 20 minutes. We stood up a sort of like a clone of Hacker News that we call lovingly Azure News, and it was made up of 4 Docker containers. One of which was a server that talked to Twilio, so people from the crowd could text in news stories, have it show up on screen, and then using that microservice architecture, we were able to update single containers and scale out single containers without taking down the whole application. I thought it's a pretty cool demo. Yeah.
The crowd received it well?
I think so.
Participating?
There's a lot of clapping. Yeah.
Do you have any gauge of idea what the numbers were that were?
I don't know. We had some very interesting. We had some interesting comments.
You don't need to show them. I'm just curious on the size numbers of how many people were inside the room and that's.
I think we had 300 or 400 people show up, and I think the Windows containers guys had another 400 or 500 guys show up for the presentation yesterday. So especially this late in the conference, I thought it was really well attended. It's a hot topic right now, so I think people are interested in learning about it.
If you do have any questions, you're welcome to interact with us again here on channel9.msdn.com. There's a form down below. We took a couple as they came in.
Yeah.
Great. You've been a good sport with play along with them.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate that. Also, you can tweet us at hashtag MSIgnitesCH9. I'll get this right. It's getting late. It's almost the end of the day as far as the live stream is concerned. How about, do you do side projects still? You do any fun things that you're still kind of interested in, toying around with? You can talk about.
I try to. We've really been putting a ton of sweat and tears into the Azure platform lately, particularly in conference season.
A big ramp of effort for the Build conference,
That's right.
And it's like just now they're going to relax a little bit.
Well,
I think get right back in it again.
Yeah, I think it's paying off. I think if you look at even if you looked at where we were like a month ago on some of the new Azure Resource Manager stuff, and where we were at Build when we announced it and the level of quality there, we made such a huge improvement. It's really nice, and you can go and do a lot of cool stuff with it today. So that's been the primary focus. I'm also coaching some Little League Baseball right now, or trying to, at least around some of the conference schedules. So that's a lot of fun. And then I've been working on, in terms of software side projects, really, it's rather than building out new things, it's more like I've just been trying to keep up with the Docker ecosystem.
Oh yeah.
It's like every single day. I think so. TechCrunch Disrupt is going on right now too,
Hmm.
and they had this thing this year called like Battlefield Startups or something, where it was kind of like March Madness style for startups
Oh yeah.
pitches. So they got down, and I think out of the last six, like 3 or 4 of them were like cloud container Docker related. So
Yeah.
it's just like it's just on the front of everybody's mind right now. So just that feels like a half-time job just trying to stay up with what's happening in the ecosystem right now.
Hmm. We're trying to think you mentioned the speed and the speed of change and everything else like that. You've
Yeah,
only
yeah.
been on the team now since January-ish
Yep.
timeframe, and you're ramping your way up in the build. Have you noticed a difference with the way that the team works? I'm not going to say that you're going to be bad-mouthing your previous teams.
No,
I'm not
no.
doing that at all. But do you notice a difference in the change in the way that things are happening and working within Microsoft? That's
Oh, absolutely. I talked a little bit before. My first two stints were both with Windows.
Mm-hmm.
They were both during the Windows 8 timeline, and Windows 8 was, really the last version of Windows that followed the traditional Windows ship cycle, right? We spec'd it as we understood the market. We went into a big development work cycle for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we came out with something. And the reality was, the market had moved a lot, right? And I think the company as a whole, and Satya has been a great proponent of this, is we need to meet people where they're at. We need to get outside of the traditional Microsoft silo and understand what other technologies are out there, what other companies are doing. And I think when you look at like how quickly the new versions of Windows are shipping, Azure shipping multiple times a day and many, many, many times a week as kind of a service-driven organization,
Mm-hmm.
it's totally different. And I think the other huge difference is when I was in Windows, it was always a big process to go out and talk to an interesting startup or a potential partner, right? It was a very like, let's schedule this, let's get the right people in the room. And now, I think there's a lot more appetite for just interacting with the community, right? We have our friend Ahmet, who I think you know as well on our development team, full-time Microsoft engineer. He's the number one contributor to the Docker open source project over the
Oh,
last 3 months,
yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, like it's just a fundamentally different outlook on how Microsoft interacts with the community, and that makes it a lot more fun to work here. Honestly, it makes it faster, opens up a lot more doors, and so I think it almost requires a new skill for us to get better at identifying which are the ones to really go after because there's so many opportunities.
We're going to be having a attendee celebration coming up
Okay,
just very soon after this.
Fallout Boy, was that the?
Well, Fall Out Boy is going to
Oh,
be there.
okay.
Grammy Award, Grammy
They're not
nominated.
playing. They're just going to be there. Okay.
I'm asking you actually about Beer Garden that's going to be there.
Oh.
I'm curious if you have a particular leaning or penchant towards one style of beer versus another.
I think
And what
with
would it be?
I think with a beard this large, I think you're into IPA territory, almost certainly.
Like IPA with 10,000 IBUs.
Oh yeah, no, at
bitterness.
least 10,000 IBUs. Yeah, no, I like my IBUs like I like my containers, and that's at scale. So that was
That's
that
a
was a
tweetable
horrible
quote
joke
right
and,
there.
and rough. Yeah. So Corey, I know you'll enjoy that one. No, but I actually really like IPAs. Living in the Northwest has turned me into a bit of a beer connoisseur, particularly on the IPA side of things. And so in Chicago, if I had the opportunity tonight, I always like to try beers when I'm traveling that
Yep.
are specific to the area, right? So I can always get Black Raven when I'm in Redmond,
Right.
but if there's a cool Chicago brewery, I'm certainly game. And after a long conference week, I think it's not a bad idea.
Have you had Revolution Brewing?
No, I haven't had any Revolution.
Anti-Hero IPA.
Nope, no,
Seek out and try that one out.
I will get that.
It is quite good.
Awesome.
It's Goose Island that's going to be at the one that we're there tonight.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
sure that they're going to have a bunch of different style of beers available in the beer garden.
Fantastic.
And they'll have cicerones there as well, which are the sommeliers of the beer world.
Okay.
To be able to tell you everything you wanted to know about the beer, about the malt, about the hops,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff too. So make sure you stop by and see that one.
Fantastic. I
We're
will be there.
We're making all the people that are online watching jealous that they don't get
Yeah.
to have that.
Oh, believe me, we've been in meetings 24/7 otherwise, right? So
The closing thoughts, places people should go to, things they should look at, things they should be doing in the Azure world, Azure space,
yeah,
partners we've been working with.
I would definitely
yours,
say if you guys hop over to mesosphere.com. I was talking a little bit about their launch before. They've got a public beta sign up, so they're looking for Azure users particularly if you're interested in Docker container spaces, just distributed applications in general, it'd be really great, and they're looking for a lot of direct feedback, so you get a lot of one-on-one time with them. And the other thing is, I'm sure you guys have heard this a bunch, but if we go to Azure.com and look at the quick start templates, it's under community and templates. We've got a whole bunch of really cool things. So if you want to start with the Azure Resource Manager templates, this is a great place to get going with some examples. And as I mentioned before, we do have the GitHub Enterprise template up and ready to go. So go kick the tires on that.
We'll have them send them that way.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
Great talking to you.
You
We're going to
too,
be
Rick.
jumping off into the hot room session for Jeffrey Snover, talking about Windows PowerShell Unplugged.
Awesome.
Plus, we're going to be coming back here to wrap up the live stream at 6:15. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
Fantastic.
You there?
Thank you.